So in part 2 of this topic, we are going to talk more about validation fields, and then we're going to learn about using validation constraints within our business objects. Okay, I'm going to give you an overview and description of what a validation constraint is. We'll talk about how it's used and take a look at some examples. This is crossed out because this is what we did in the first half of the class. We created a validation business object that gave us bed sizes to choose from for our hotel rooms. And then we linked it to the field in the configuration. We linked it to the field in the service desk console or UI. And then we also added fields. So this portion's done. But to do a validation constraint, we have to do all of that over again, but for a different field. So on this one, we'll have 2 fields there. You'll see. And then finally, we'll add the constraint. And first, I'm going to show you a little diagram. Try to help make sense of this. What you're looking at down here on the bottom, this is the business object that is seen in the Service Desk Console or UI. And so it already has all of these fields here. Our ultimate goal is for the reservation clerk to be able to choose the size of bed the customer wants and then see which room styles are available with that size bed. So the room styles, we've got like economy and I don't know, executive and things like that. So that's what we're going to do. Now in the first half of the class, we created a validation business object with a field in it for bed size. Then we created a pick list that said to get its information from here. And then we linked this pick list to the bed size field. So that's how we were able to, in the Service Desk console, click on the arrow next to bed size, and it showed us the size of beds that we had. And the data up here, these are the bed sizes that we added. Well, what we want to do is, like I said, let the reservation clerk choose the size of bed and then see which room styles are available with that size bed. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build this on the right-hand side. We're going to build a validation business object just like we did in the other activity. However, this one's going to have 2 fields. You have to have the 2 fields in the second business object, validation business object, if you want to be able to do a constraint. So sometimes it feels like you're doing the same thing more than once. You're not really, but it kind of can seem like that. So right now I'm going to create this validation business object. Then I'm going to create this pick list and link it to this room style field. So in the end, when the customer picks the bed size, they'll be looking at these. And when they go to pick a room style, they're only going to see the ones that have double next to it because they chose double here. All right, so let's take a look at what that would look like in the product. All right, so currently I'm on my Service Desk Analyst role and I have my hotel reservations business object. I'm just going to open up this record. Okay, so currently I've just put some text in there for the room style, but that's not what we're going to ultimately end up with. We're going to be able to pick a bed size and then pick a room style. So first off, I think I should change my form around a little bit. All right, so to get all that done, we need to be using our administrator role. And we're going to go to the configuration console. And like I said, the first thing I want to do is I want to change my form so those fields are kind of close together. Here's our hotel reservations. Here's my form. And I'm going to have, where is it here, room style. I'm going to move that down so it's right below bed size. Okay, oops. So now they'll be able to pick the bed size and then they'll see the style of rooms that are available. Just save that. All right, and I'm also going to go back to the main part of my business object here and look at the fields. And field size or bed size over here, if you'll see, This one, it's getting its values from the business object that we created earlier. You can actually see the values here. Okay. All right. So now we're going to build the business object, the validation business object. And it's going to have two fields. It's going to have the bed size and the room style. Let me just collapse that. I'm just going to call this one hotel room style, even though it's going to have two fields on it. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just find it easier to make sense that this is the second business object. Okay, so I'm going to add my fields. They're both going to be text fields, and one is going to be bed size. Okay. And then the next one is going to be room style. I'm going to put a description in there so we know what maybe some of the styles of rooms are that we have. And save. Actually, let me add the field. And then I'm just going to save that. Okay, so we know to see and get data in the system, we have to have our forms and our lists layouts. So I'm going to just auto-generate those. So I'm going to go to the Details tab, Auto-Generate UI. Just get rid of that. Okay, so now what I've done is I've created that second business object. Right over here, this is what I just created, this business object. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this pick list. Oops. All right, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to pick lists, add new, rune. Okay. And the business object I'm going to connect it to is the one I just created a minute ago. Starts with hotel. And I called it room style. Okay. And then my display field, it's just going to be the room style. I have two display fields I can choose from, bed size and room style. But bed size is what's being used on the other pick lists. This one here, I'm going to choose room style. Okay, and I'm going to save that. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have now. Okay, so right now I just created this pick list. It said it's going to get its data from the validation business object that I just created. Okay, so now I'm going to link this pick list to the room style in my main business object. Okay, so I'm going to come to business objects. Here's our hotel reservations. Here's my fields, and I'm looking for the room style field. And I'm going to come down to pick list validated. And I'm looking for the pick list that I just created. This one here doesn't have type ahead, so you kind of have to look through the list. All right, so hotel room style. Okay, now we don't have any values in this one yet. You can add values just like the other one. I can add values at any time that I want. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and save my changes. Okay, here comes the diagram. Okay, so what I just did was I was on my main business object, the one that you would see in the user interface. I went to the room style field. I connected it to that pick list. Now I want to get some data into this. To get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish a link between this validation business object and this pick list. So what I'm going to do is this pick list down here is linked to this object that has a list of bed sizes. Okay, so over here what I'm going to do is when I put the data in, I'd have to enter the type or the bed size and style room, bed size, style room. So rather than typing the bed style over and over again, I already have that information. So if I link this field, this bed size field, to this list, then I'm going to be able to add this data much easier. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to my validation business objects. I'm going to hotel. Oops, guess I could have typed it in. Okay, room style. I'm going to my fields, and over here I'm going to choose bed size. Okay, and then for this one over here, I'm going to choose pick list and validated. Okay, here comes the diagram again. All right, so right now, what I just did is I went to my validation business object that has the bed size and the room style. I opened up to the bed size field and told it to get its data from, or to connect it anyway, to this pick list. So that's what I just now did. All right, so now what I'm able to do is I'm able to populate the second pick list. So I'm going to come over here though, and I'm going to go to pick lists. We'll look at another way to get the data in there. Okay, so hotel room style, this is the one that we're populating right now. Don't open it, just click on values. And over here on the right it says add. So here I'll be able to choose the bed style and then put the room styles that we have that size bed in. Oops. Okay, now we're only seeing the one field because that's all we have here is the room style field, but don't worry, it's storing those values. All right, so you just continue on and put all the, the values that go in both fields. So now I'm going to come back over here to home. And let's talk about what we did. Yes, here comes the diagram. Okay, so in the second half of the course here, what I did was I went to, I created a validation business object called hotel room style. Then I created a pick list that said to get its data from here. All right. Then I went to my room style field and told it to get its data from this pick list, which in turn is getting it here. Okay. And then I went back to this validation business object and populated this data. Okay. But I established a link between this bed size field and this pick list. All right. Okay. So let's go in. Now it's not going to work just yet. There's another step that we have to add, but let's take a look at what we have so far. Bed size and then room style. We've got, they don't always match. Okay, so this is where the constraint's going to come into play. So I'm going to go to my business object. Here comes the diagram. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to add the validation constraint. Okay, so in the pick list, we're going to create the pick list. Well, actually, we've already created it, but we're going to put this constraint down at the bottom. And the way you read this would be This here would be the field your customer would, or your reservation clerk would pick first. So they're going to see this business object, so this would be the field that they would pick first. Okay, and then they'd be presented with a list of the styles, um, room styles that we have with that size bed. All right, so to make that happen, down here we say, okay, well, they pick the bed size and then equal to. And then we're going to put this function or expression over here. Okay. Well, you notice this has bed size as well. So it's saying, okay, well, here they pick from these. If they pick a double, then they can only get the options that are available for the double in here. If they pick the king, then they'd get executive or family. Double, they get executive or economy. So that's kind of the way that these are working in the background. This validation constraint is on the pick list that has that we created just a little while ago, not the one earlier in the day. So I'm going to go to my pick list. Okay, so this is the one that we want. I'm going to click on that to open it up. And at the bottom, you'll see it says constraints. So over here, I'm going to click on my plus. And what field is the reservation clerk going to select first? Well, we want them to select the bed size that the customer wants. And then over here, this is where we'd put our constraint. So the constraint would have a $sign, a left paren, a left square bracket, validation, list, all one word, right square bracket, and then right here, this is going to be the name. Let me show you. Here comes the diagram. Okay, this one right here, remember, has to be the exact same field name as we have in the business object that's in the user interface. Oops. And then right paren. Save that. Okay, now we'll go back to the user interface and test it out. I'll just create a new record. Whoops. All right. So here, bed size, if I choose double, we have the economy and the executive style rooms available. If I choose king, we've got the economy and the suites available as a style of room. Okay. So that was a validation constraint. I guess my main tip for you is to, yes, here comes the diagram. Okay, is to draw out something with like this right here as your main business object, the pick list, the validation business object, and then the same thing over here. You don't need the ones with the data, but if you at least have these, then you can kind of see what, it gets connected where, because it really does seem like when you're creating these that you might be creating the same thing twice when actually you do need to do, some of these things. So if you, want to not tax your memory, then you can kind of put some kind of a diagram like that together and then write in the information. Okay, so with that, all right, getting help, we've got the same options that I showed you earlier. You can do the home administer using pick lists. And then also home administer using pick lists and using validation business objects. Don't forget to join the Ivanti Insider program. And finally, here's some exercises for you to try. This looks a lot like the exercises in part 1 of the class, but it is very similar. So you're going to create an additional validation object. Remember, I created a second one that had the room styles and the bed sizes. Create a pick list. In this case, the pick list is going to be connected to the room style field so that you can, add those. And then you're also going to add the validation constraint to the bottom of that pick list. And then you can add your values anywhere you want, either from the main business object or the pick list. And then connect the pick list to the field in your user interface or service desk console. Okay.